What's up, y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to the story mode. So, this video is going to be very different, okay? Because I've had a concept of a video style that I've wanted to do for quite some time now, and it's gonna be a little weird, but hear me out on this. For a good while now, I've wanted to start something of a revisited series, something that gives me an excuse to revisit some of my favorite games, or some games that I reminisce about every now and again and just haven't had the time to play or replay in quite some time. Obviously, in this case, it's... wait. I don't know where the logo's at. Final Fantasy VII Remake is the one that we're talking about today. The reason that I wanted to do Final Fantasy VII Remake is because I absolutely adore this game. It is easily one of my favorites of all time. And while I do have an obvious lot of those, this one has a very special place in my heart because its designs and aesthetics have been with me for a very, very long time. Everything in regards to Final Fantasy VII, I've loved since I was a kid. So getting a modern retelling of this game with modern graphics, great looking styles, characters, aesthetic, music, oh my god, there was just so much to love about the concepts, and I just could not wait to get my hands on Final Fantasy VII Remake. I was just excited for that as I was for Kingdom Hearts 3, if not even debatably more. Nah, probably not more. Kingdom Hearts 3, I literally, I don't know, it was pretty bad on both fronts. I love it a lot, is the point. So, we're doing a revisited series, right? Now, what this means is that we're gonna have two separate souls talking to you at different given times. Right now, you're talking to past soul. You'll probably see a little thing come up in the corner, so that lets you know constantly that you're talking to soul of the past. The soul that has not replayed the game yet. The one that is solely referring to what he remembers from the last time he played the game. I'm going to be giving all of my opinions, my thoughts, my likes and dislikes when it comes to what I remember. And then I'm gonna pass it over to future soul, who's not talking yet, but I'm gonna have a little thing pop up on the screen so you know the sign that comes up when future soul is talking, because he's not gonna be in front of the camera, so that he can see whether or not my likes and dislikes still hold up, still make sense, and still apply. So you're gonna be going back and forth between a soul who has not replayed the game yet and a soul who has recently finished the game. Sound good? Awesome. I think we completely understand what's happening here, I hope. If you don't, you'll get it in a moment. Anyway, I have not played Final Fantasy VII Remake in quite some time, and the last time I've had really anything to do with Remake, I was watching a Let's Play from Maximilian Dude in the background while I was waiting for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to come out, because I was working a lot more at that time. I was just like physically at my day job just every single day, and I just did not have the energy to just go through Final Fantasy VII Remake again all the way through, and it was a lot easier for me to just absorb like a fresh reaction through Maximilian Dude. Shout out to him, bro. What a fun ass series, man. What a good series. It was much easier for me to reabsorb that while it was in the background of me working, because I was alone a lot of the time. So it was really fun to just kind of hear all of his reactions again and things like that. It was a really good time, right? But again, I absolutely adore this game. I adore this world, and just everything about it is so awesome, and getting this remake was easily one of the most awesome gaming experiences of my entire life. I distinctly remember the moment this game came out, Animal Crossing was done. I completely dropped Animal Crossing, and that is when I basically almost never came back to it again. As soon as that game came out, my friends could not get in touch with me. I said, leave me alone, I'm locking up, it's me and Final Fantasy right now. Do not play with me. There were no games to be played that day, except Final Fantasy. So, why don't we go ahead and sift through some of my memories and see what holds up. Now, I don't have like a review style organized list or anything. I kind of don't want to do that for this. I have a very loose list of my usual, what I like and what I dislike. Again, difference is we're going to be going back and forth between past me and future me on each individual category or topic or whatever. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and go through my likes and dislikes when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake, starting with my likes. Obviously, the first major thing about Final Fantasy VII Remake is that it looks absolutely stunning, beautiful. It's really funny. Recently, during the Nintendo Switch 2 presentation, we got confirmation that we are getting Final Fantasy VII Remake integrated for Switch 2. And I was excited, and a lot of people are excited, but the thing is, a lot of people are iffy about the fact that this console is running the power of a PS4, so they're kind of scared that the game is going to look bad. But are we insane? Because I don't think a lot of people realize just how much power we were playing with the PS4, because Final Fantasy VII Remake is absolute undeniable proof of that. This game looks absolutely stunning. Yeah, it's a little dark a lot of the time, and it kind of has that problem where when it is sunny outside, once in a blue moon during that game, you get blinded every time you walk outside. But you know what? It's worth it, because I get blinded staring at all of these absolutely beautiful characters every single time I turn this game on, so I have absolutely no complaints. It's almost like I'm getting flashed every single time, because all of them are beautiful and they look great. Their designs are so damn perfect, it's not even funny. Like, whoever decided to make the characters this way based on their original designs from the original Final Fantasy VII, they cooked. They nailed that, man. But again, of course, like, we've had so many variations of them throughout the years that it's very obvious to see what they would have looked like in 3D anyways. But they did a very good job transitioning from, you know, the original to this version. Everything in this game looks stunning too. The graphical capabilities, the backgrounds, the, you know, everything in Midgard just looks so heavily detailed and so nice. It was almost like, it's so weird, it's very strange to say this, but if you've ever played one of the David Cage games, the one thing I will say about those games is that they're very heavily detailed and they look pretty good graphically. Right? When you look at Beyond Two Souls or Detroit Become Human, the games look really good. They are very high quality. And the thing about those games is that the gameplay suffers a little bit because you're kind of just doing very simple tasks. You're walking around doing very mundane things. When it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake, you aren't held back by anything like that. It is consistent action all the time with the beautiful graphics. It's super unbelievable, and I think that's just extremely awesome. So, future me, what are we thinking? Is it still holding up? Does it still look amazing? Am I imagining it correctly? What do you think? I genuinely want to beat past me into the floor, because it has now been a full year since I recorded this, and the layout that I have set up for this specific series has changed drastically. I have it way more organized now, as proven in my Star Fox video that I made like last month or whatever. But regardless, like I said, it's a little dated, and it took me a lot longer to end up finishing Final Fantasy than I thought, because I had started it last year, got distracted, and then I inevitably finally came back to it just last week with the announcement of Final Fantasy VII Revelation. So, you know, here we are. Took long enough, but it was only a matter of time. Right? I absolutely still adore this game. I still think it's very special to me, and I would play it over and over and over again until the freaking sun explodes. Right? So, we're just gonna go ahead and answer Past Soul directly. Does Final Fantasy VII graphically still hold up to this day? Yeah, I didn't think that. I don't even really know why I set it up this way, but regardless, yes, I definitely agree to this day that this game is still easily one of the most beautiful I've played to date. It is so phenomenally styled. It's like pretty, but also manages to showcase all of like the grittiness and the darkness that is, you know, the darker side of the slums and things along those lines of Midgar. They set it up so incredibly well. They made everything look so like detailed and highly defined, excuse me. And, you know, that doesn't even apply to like the characters. The characters themselves are just so gorgeous. Like the way they are designed, every zoom in on their face, I am just oohing and awing, because they are just crafted with so much love and care so beautifully. They look even better than they do in Advent Children, right? And like, I know Advent Children is definitely like a finicky, you know, talking point when it comes to the masses, because of, you know, how not great in a lot of aspects it is, but I still think it's a generally pretty movie, even for its time, and they managed to really take on those designs and just flourish them. It's so easy to look at these characters, right? But again, like I said, even without that, throughout the entirety of the playthrough, right, you would think that in a lot of different aspects, especially because you're going to so many different unique areas or very specific areas within Midgar, you would think that there would be a lot more times where graphically the game would take a dip, but like they shelled out no expense. They put in every ounce of effort possible into building the world around you, right? Everything feels very like cluttered and things like that, and it's showcased in the design of each individual town, each area that you explore, whether it be like the general slums of Sector 5 or Sector 7 or, you know, the underground and things like that. And it's so incredibly impressive how much detail went into every nook and cranny. Every single corner that you go around, there's just unnecessary levels of detail that you would not expect. And I'm very pleased that they really just revitalized, they refined everything even more in Intergrade, right? So yeah, suffice to say, this game is very, very easy on the eyes, extremely pretty, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't know what else to say about this here, so for now, passing it back to past me. Alright, thanks for that. So, hopefully it held up, I don't know. We'll see what future me says. But, moving on, the next thing that I absolutely adored about this game was its story and its characters. Now again, it's following something of a blueprint because we've had Final Fantasy VII since 1997. We've had this game, or was it 97 or 96? We've had this game for a very, very long time already, technically speaking. So it's not like it was too hard to just kind of rehash the story that we know and love, but they did it in a way that made it feel modern, made it feel crisp, and made it feel very realistic and easier to get into for modern audiences. And they did a really good job with that. This story is absolutely incredible, and it still holds up even more so than I thought it would, because it's really scary how accurate games that are this political get, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, any game can technically be political, especially in RPGs when it comes to the higher-ups versus the lowers, you know what I'm saying? And in Final Fantasy VII, that is a prime aspect of it, right? We are currently living in something like that, and it's crazy to think about how accurate that is. But regardless, I'm absolutely in love with this story. The absolute turmoil that Cloud goes through is just so easy to get invested into. I love everything about it. And then of course that bleeds into the characters. They kind of go hand in hand because all these characters have so much history, so much story amongst each other, amongst this world, especially within Midgar, because Midgar, in the case of Final Fantasy VII, is treated almost as its own character. Like, Midgar as a city is just like, there's just so much going on there that it's literally the first disc, right? You remember, like, the whole thing about Final Fantasy VII is that it takes place solely in Midgar, or at least like the first disc does, the first quarter of the game does. And in the case of Final Fantasy VII Remake, that still holds true. You're still pretty much only solely experiencing everything in Midgar at that point before we eventually branch out into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But all of these characters have so much personality, it's ridiculous, right? And here's the thing, right? In the original Final Fantasy VII, from what I do remember, because it's been a very long time since I played the original, the characters still pretty much hold up one-to-one from how they were. You know, Cloud is this like edgy wannabe, just like, you know, cold, hard ass, you know, whatever, Merc. And then there's Barrett, you know, the like very passionate like leader that wants to make things right with the world, and he's very like gung-ho about everything, even if he's not using 100% of his brain cells all the time. But he's a good man, he's a good father, and he cares about his kids, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not just talking about Marlene, I'm talking about Avalanche. You know what I'm saying? He takes care of his people, right? It's them first. But of course, he wants to help the planet as much as he can, and he's gonna do whatever he has to do it, even attaching an entire gun to his arm, because he's just built like that. You know what I'm saying? And then of course there's Tifa, a very complex character that is absolutely I love her so much. She is such a badass, and she is so cool. I absolutely adore Tifa as a character, and you know, her strife with having to deal with, you know, how Cloud is slowly slipping away at all given times, you know, because he's dealing with so much turmoil, and she obviously loves him so much. She cares about this man so much, despite the fact that he's been gone for God knows how long from her, and it's just like, it's just such a tragic story with them. And then of course you have the wonderful Aerith, my baby girl. I love that girl so much, man. We love Aerith in this house. She's so damn funny. She's so uplifting, and her laugh and smile and just personality is so incredibly infectious that I can't get enough of it, right? Absolutely great character. Absolutely just wonderful addition to the cast as well. I mean, addition to the cast. She's always been there. just so we're clear. She's always been there, right? So, wonderful cast. It is such a, like, found family situation too, you know, because it's one of those situations where, you know, these four get put in very unforeseen circumstances that force them to end up going on a longer journey together throughout, you know, the story. And of course there's other characters involved too, but that's kind of down the line, because that you know, that plays more into like Rebirth and like, you know, Disc 2 and stuff like that. But for the most part, you know, with the cast that we're dealing with here, I love every single one of them, and they have so much, you know, uniqueness to each of their personalities that it's just so easy to fall in love with them. And I can truly never, ever get enough of them. All right, future me, it's going back to you. How are we feeling in regards to the story and the characters of Final Fantasy VII Remake? Thank you, past me. So, I can still confirm that, without a doubt, I still adore the world and characters of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Everything about it is so astounding to me, and even to this day, it still holds very near and dear to my heart. I adore these characters with every fiber of my being. The plot in of itself is so, like, frustratingly good, especially when they're basically essentially just taking what was already present back in the original Final Fantasy VII and kind of escalating it to new heights and really deepening everything about every aspect of the political strife between, you know, Shinra and Avalanche, Shinra and Wutai, and, you know, just the general vibe of everything is enhanced tenfold, because you can actually see the emotion, every inch of, pretty much every pore on every character's face when they emote in regards to everything, you know, the opposing character says. And so everything about the story is just so incredible, especially because it's one of those things where, like, you know, back in 97, it's one thing to see, like, yeah, no, you know, governments, corporations, stuff like that, they're ruining their planet by, you know, doing what they want, and money comes first, yada yada yada. But in this current day and age, it is more like, it's so obvious, like, more than ever, how critical that situation is with our current, you know, world that we're living in, and how relatable that situation is in Final Fantasy VII. Obviously, it's more dramatized in Final Fantasy VII Remake, what with the Mako reactors and stuff like that, and, you know, rebellion groups blowing shit up. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's dramatized and it's, you know, fantasy, but it's still, you know, it still speaks to a higher degree as to, you know, what we're dealing with as a people currently. So it resonates very, very heavily with me as a story, and, you know, the aesthetics and general vibe of Midgar in of itself really helps elevate my love for it, just because I love that aesthetic. I love that, like, I don't want to say cyberpunky, but it's like, it's almost like modern futuristic type situation, but like grungy and, like, what's the word? There's another word that I'm looking for here, but, you know, the slums and stuff like that, it's very, like, compact, it's very, like, sad the way people have to live, the things people have to do just to get by around a lot of Midgar, especially, again, in the lower slums and things like that. It's a rough situation to have to watch people go through that kind of thing, right? And you're, you know, constantly going on different side quests and missions, helping out people and getting an idea of their livelihood, what they're going through during these trying times within Midgar, and, you know, the entire situation leading up to the plate fall, or rather Shinra knocking down the plate using the Turks and stuff like that, was just appalling to see for a lot of people. And you know, that story is just so meaningful, because it's just like they are fighting tooth and nail to try and protect these people, and like people don't even really understand that Avalanche was doing everything they could to protect them, you know, because Shinra's spinning their web of lies, and it's just so tough, right? And then of course the characters themselves are just absolutely fascinating. I'm gonna touch back on story, because there's only, what I explained is only like the first real half of it, but I do think that before we get to that second half, it's important to note the characters within this story here, because the thing about Final Fantasy VII in particular is that it is extremely heavily character driven, right? The entire point from the get-go, like right from frame one, is to get you attached to those characters, right? Obviously the story in of itself is very important and very good, but the characters themselves are what like make everything so incredibly interesting, because of how well they tie into everything, and because of all their very unique and diverse personalities, right? You have Cloud, the very mentally messed up ex-soldier that is, you know, paid like fire for hire, essentially, ready to pounce at a moment's notice for the right amount of gil, right? You have our leader, our big boy, our big daddy leader in Barrett, who is ready to gun down Shinra and any form of corporate greed at a moment's notice, and also just generally anything that's willing to threaten the planet, you know what I'm saying? Then you have Tifa, you know, much more soft-hearted and, you know, secretly, you know, harboring a little bit of resentment and regret and anger, all the while trying to really, you know, keep what she considers a family together the best that she can, while also trying to hold herself together. But, you know, sometimes it slips through the cracks. But that's what's so intriguing about her character, is that she is so self-sacrificial, it's not even funny, right? And then of course you have Aerith, who the legendary Cetra, who simply knows too much and not enough all at the same time. Her presence within Final Fantasy is such a mysterious situation in of itself, because of her connection to the planet and to the, you know, her being an ancient and everything like that, and of course her story of being an ancient, and you know what that meant to like Shinra and stuff like that, and how they wanted to abuse her and her mother and everything they could just to get, you know, more energy, more Mako, more money out of the potential of, you know, the ancients and what they left with the planet, right? So all in all, it's such a just strong cast of characters that you cannot help but love, especially when you have such a fun dynamic between all of them, with, you know, Barrett absolutely despising Cloud for not only, you know, being a quote-unquote Shinra lapdog once upon a time, but for defecting on them, so him not really knowing where his true allegiance lies for a lot of that time. Obviously, you know, the relationships between, man, the essentially, you know, the very obvious love triangle between Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa is always super, like, it's a debate to this day. People still talk about that love triangle to this day as if it's Love Island type shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, it is still that serious, right? Obviously, you know, Aerith getting to know Tifa more, her first true, like, close friend, like true girlfriend that she could confide in comfortably, which is, to my understanding, enhanced even more in Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, right? Especially, I played a little bit of the beginning of Rebirth, and I forgot, you know, after that entire ordeal by the end of Remake, you know, they've gotten a lot closer and they feel comfortable enough to, you know, confide in each other a little bit more, and I adore that about them. And, you know, obviously Barrett interacting with anybody is just the greatest thing ever. I love that man with all my heart. And obviously, you know, we did have an introduction to Red at the ass end of Remake, but we didn't get as much time with him as we would have wanted, you know, at that point in time. Obviously, you know, we've played Rebirth, we've had Red as a general character for a very long time in 7, and, you know, still very immaculate and mysterious character in of himself, but we'll save him for our inevitable talk in regards to Rebirth. But all in all, simply just beautiful and wonderful casts that you can't help but get to love, and they're all so incredibly badass too. Obviously, one of my favorite things about Final Fantasy VII growing up was the fact that Cloud as a character was the coolest thing ever, right? Him and Shadow the Hedgehog are the reason why I'm a sucker for edgy stuff, right? I love the fact that Cloud has this big ass sword and he acts harder than he needs to, you know, so that that, you know, by the time we get more and more through the story, he softens up, he eventually opens up, and we'll eventually get to see the real Cloud by the time we get to Revelation, right? So it's a truly incredible situation that we have with him as a character and watching him develop, obviously seeing, like, you know, the entire team worry more and more about him as we progress and things like that. But again, I'm stepping too far into Rebirth territory. Point is, you could see the cracks slipping through Cloud's mental state thanks to Sephiroth, which is one of the primary antagonists of Final Fantasy VII overall, or he is the main antagonist, right? And it's kind of a weird hit or miss situation when it comes to Sephiroth, especially in Remake, because he shows up a lot earlier in Remake than he did in the original game, obviously. So, you know, his presence is extremely jarring, but he is so sick as an antagonist. Like, he is the embodiment of just fear and just anxiety and all that rolled into one, right? He is a true living nightmare, right? And the Whispers, you know, kind of utilizing that fact is just incredible to me. And the interesting thing about that is that the entire purpose of Final Fantasy VII Remake was to introduce the primary theme, or to like really hone in on the newer theme, which is essentially defying fate. Right? The entire point of the Whispers is to keep things on track, make sure that, you know, certain things aren't revealed too early and certain things don't happen the way they, you know, should, or, you know, play out the way that they should. Obviously, you know, characters getting stabbed or something like that, like Barrett getting stabbed by Sephiroth near the end of the game. They were like, nah, that can't happen. So Barrett was, you know, perfectly fine. It does take away a little bit of the stakes, because we know a lot of these characters are going to be fine thanks to the Whisper's presence. But, you know, again, after Final Fantasy VII Remake's ending, it's just kind of like up in the air, like, oh, like everything that we did up to this point, like, wasn't supposed to happen. Like, now we are in unfamiliar territory, or at least we're starting to hop more into unfamiliar territory. Again, we'll talk about Rebirth when we get there. But regardless, that was a very major ongoing theme, or reoccurring theme throughout Final Fantasy VII Remake, and Cloud taking on Sephiroth that early was a spectacle because of it, and I think it tied everything together really well. But overall, wonderful plot, wonderful characters. I adore them with all my heart. It is truly one of my favorite games of all time. So yeah, I think it's safe to agree with past me. Who's gonna take the mic back now? Go ahead on. Okay, all right. I see you. Actually, I don't see you at all. You probably don't see him either, and I'm sure he said something interesting, maybe, or maybe he just yapped your ear off for like 5 whole minutes. Who knows? But you guys will see eventually. Hopefully, the story and characters still very much hold up. The next thing that I absolutely could not get enough of was the world building and side quests. One thing about me is that I want to be a writer eventually, right? And one of my favorite things in like fiction and media and stuff like that is a situation where we have like casual stuff like magic, like these superpowered individuals that are just capable of doing this stuff, and so they're the ones called upon to handle very specific situations when they come up, right? So in the case of Final Fantasy VII Remake, within the story, you know, them dealing with the, you know, the higher ups of Shinra and stuff like that, they're constantly, you know, going throughout the world. You know, in Midgar, you're, you know, facing the higher ups, you're also down in the slums with the people, just getting to know this world and seeing everybody's struggles and things like that. And it's just such a like real world. They did such a good job of making you feel for this world, making you feel for all of these poor people in Midgar that are suffering because the higher ups want to do what they want to do up at Shinra, because they run the game and there's nothing you can do about that, right? So I really appreciate how they went about that, especially because it definitely helped that we had a lot of side quests that helped build on that. You know, we had ourselves with Johnny, him ripping and running all over Timbuktu of Midgar. He was always getting involved one way or another. Voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, might I add. Absolutely goated choice. One of my favorite voice actors of all time. And it's just so funny to see like stuff like that. It's so like endearing to see little, you know, smaller moments of, you know, them being a little more vulnerable when it comes to like, you know, Cloud visiting the kids and things like that, picking flowers with Aerith. Just, I mean, I guess that's that's a main quest, but regardless, you know, there's just a lot of like little side quests here and there that really help build the world up a little bit, you know. It's stupid little things like searching for kids' cats and stuff like that. I love that, man. I'm 1000% here for that stuff. I literally could not get enough of it during my first playthrough. There was always like new side quests popping up, and as anti as I was to get through the story as fast as humanly possible, you know, that's my own issue. I definitely found myself getting invested and going out of my way to complete these little side quests and do everything that the world had to offer, because the world was just so nice and inviting and investing that I just couldn't tear myself away from it. And I really do think that they did a great job of handling how that was worked in, you know? So, future me, how are we feeling? Maybe you have more to add on. How do we feel about the world building and the side quests? Well, I gotta tell you, past me, feeling pretty good about the world building and side quests, although those two things kind of go hand in hand. And the thing about it is, that's interesting, is that I feel much better about it my second full time through this game now, right? Because when I played it initially, right, and this is a problem that I have in regards to a lot of my games, my first run through, is that I want to just enjoy the story. I want the story as soon as humanly possible. I get to a point where I get a little bit on the impatient side, and I just really want plot. I want story. I want to understand my characters better, especially if I'm super invested. I want to just see the story from beginning to end, right? And it's not to the detriment of like the world or the story or anything like that in itself. It's just that I just need to know the bare bones basics of everything right from the get-go. And then it's usually on my second playthrough, my second or third playthrough, where I start really like, okay, like I know everything, so I can really take my time and see what else adds to this wonderful story that I enjoy so much, right? And in the case of Final Fantasy VII Remake, I found myself enjoying my second playthrough a lot, probably even more than my initial playthrough, because, you know, like initially it seemed that there were a lot of side quests. I felt like I was a little overwhelmed by the amount of side quests, only for my second playthrough to reveal to me that there wasn't that many. There weren't even 30 full side quests, at least not on, you know, your first, technically, your first run. Like, you could get more side quests through the harder mode and when you run back through, but there's not even that many side quests to partake in, actually. Every time you go through a major arc within the story after a couple of chapters, you end up in a position where you are allowed to just kind of take a break, go grind, go do side quests. New side quests will crop up in that area that you're in. Just do those to upgrade yourself or your companions, get materia and stuff like that, and then you can finish up in that area, and it will eventually recommend like, hey, you've done everything you can here, we could go ahead and progress comfortably now, right? And it's kind of a constant cycle with that in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it felt very natural this time around, especially because I was, you know, I was good with just taking my time, really taking in the sights, taking in all the characters, and just the busy life of the slums and things like that, of everything going on in Midgar and the like, right? So I think it's safe to say that they definitely did a good job, especially in this case in particular, because again, you got to remember this first game, Final Fantasy VII Remake, in the original takes place over the course of 4 hours. That's not a lot of time to get in nearly as much story and development and characters and world building, right? As opposed to here, where they have that time, they enhance just so much about these characters and the story, and you know, even the individual NPCs all have their own thing going on, right? You are getting to know characters like Johnny, you know, that's just kind of, he's a mess. That boy is all over Timpug 2, just, you know, trying to do whatever he can to stay afloat at this point, right? He's all over the damn place. You get to know even the individual members of Avalanche, like Jesse, like Biggs and Wedge and stuff like that. You grow more of an attachment to them, probably even more so than you did in the original Final Fantasy VII, right? You know, you grow an attachment to just the general towns that you visit, all of the different little, you know, structures that you visit, right? In Sector 5, right? You get to know the orphanage, the kids in the orphanage, and you know, you just see how much effort is put into the orphanage, only to find out that the teacher of that orphanage at night, to make more money or to, you know, just indulge in more of her dreams, is a dancer at the Honeybee Inn in an entirely different town, right? In Wall Market. And even Wall Market as an area that you can be in within Remake is such an astounding little spot, because you learn so much about its history and how it's just kind of like the semi-lawless place that all of the people that felt they had nowhere else to go ended up, because of all the, you know, occurrences of, you know, what's going on with Shinra and stuff like that, right? And so it's little cute quests like that you really get to, you know, understand more of the world and its characters and just what kind of position that they're in and what they're doing to get by, right? But it makes you really appreciate just how much world there is, more so than ever within Final Fantasy VII, because again, in the original, I remember I did play through, you know, up to that section, or at least a little past where Remake ended, and it was astounding to see, like, wow, like I got here really fast in retrospect. That's insanity, you know? So, you know, obviously that being said, it's just kind of, you know, phenomenal that they put so much effort into every little piece of dialogue and quest. It was so cute to have a side quest of the little girl who had you collect music discs to, you know, raise everybody's spirits after the collapse of the plate in Sector 7, right? So it's little things like that that really help elevate everything, right? Obviously, a lot of the kids, or the little orphans that live around Sector 5 that are, you know, one of them's dressed up as a Moogle. He really is like a Moogle, you know what I'm saying? He has merchandise to sell you and stuff like that. The kids, you know, that need saving or need help or need, you know, stuff to be collected. They need you to fight off an enemy that's obviously way too dangerous for them. They end up getting kidnapped, you know, by said enemies. It's just such a grand time to indulge in these characters and their pastimes and everything like that, you know? Even the little workout mini games that they introduced to you, that you could play. I think it was, what, your second visit there, you play as Tifa. That was awesome. That was great, you know? So yeah, no, I think that they did a very good job with the side quest situation. It doesn't feel too overwhelming, as opposed to, again, we're gonna get to Rebirth, but I think they did a good job just evening out and balancing how many side quests are available to you. Obviously, they're completely optional. It's not like it completely changes the story or anything, but because, you know, they do a good job reutilizing areas and, you know, having you visit every nook and cranny within Midgar, I would absolutely say it is completely 100% worth going out of your way to do pretty much everything that you can, right? Especially because the game just feels good. It's just such a fun game to play that you want to indulge as much as you usually can in a game like this, and they do a good job with those side quests. None of them feel too incredibly ridiculous or out of place. There are some that are a little repetitive here and there, but, you know, that's how side quests are. It's an RPG. Right. And then, of course, you know, with the world building, those, again, it goes kind of hand in hand. But on top of that, you know, you get a lot more little tidbits of information in regards to, like, Don Corneo and his involvement with the fall of the Sector 7 plate and everything like that. You know, characters that are involved with him, like, what's the kid's name with the white hair? It's been a week, I've already forgot. But, you know, he's a very interesting character. He's very frustrated. Again, like, you could definitely see there's a little bit of padding throughout the game, right? I'll probably mention this in my negatives somewhere if I did negatives here. I'm trying to refrain from going too far ahead. You know what I'm saying? I want to let Pastel do his thing. But it was very interesting to have a character like that involved with Don Corneo, to see, you know, what, you know, exactly, like, the kind of situation, like the realistic situation of like what that kind of pressure and what, you know, that kind of situation could do to somebody to, you know, piss them off and everything like that. Obviously, you have like the scaling of Shinra Tower, and you're getting more info on like all of their like plans and what kind of personalities are in charge, and you really get more of a feel for like why Barrett is so incredibly angry with Shinra and stuff like that, just how evil of a corporation they are, right? You get more context on characters like Reeve, that's just kind of a man on the inside, the president being Avalanche and stuff like that. It's really, really neat stuff. It's really, really good stuff, and that's just like a lot of the surface level stuff that I've brung up, right? So overall, very good. Absolutely in love with the way that they did it here, and they helped flesh out so much more within the realm of Final Fantasy VII, and I appreciate it to high hell. So, all right, that's enough. Pass Soul, mic's yours. Oh, is he done yapping? Finally? Jeez. Anyway, so I guess you have my fresher, newer opinion when it comes to the world building and side quests within Final Fantasy VII Remake. Then, of course, one of the last major things is absolutely the music. When I tell you, my literal ringtone, my current ringtone to this day is da 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 da. It's literally the jingle. I've had that as my ringtone for years. I have yet to change it, and I don't think I really want to. I never get enough of it, okay? The Genova, it's just, I love it. I'm in love with it, okay? And that applies to pretty much everything here, because obviously the music in Final Fantasy VII, generally speaking, has always been pretty damn iconic, and they only did an even better job recomposing and doing all of this stuff in the remake. I wouldn't even say a better job, just like, it's just, they're good on equal terms, you know? They did such a good job with the remixes and the ambiance of different areas, and I can never get enough of that music. It's just so easy to listen to. It's so easy on the ears, and I'll never get tired of them. You know, Aeris themes, absolutely legendary classic, you know? It's just good all around. It truly is. They do a very good job of capturing the softer moments with stuff like the pianos and things like that, but also the big action-y moments, and of course, the original battle theme recomposed into a modern style with that little, you know, that action-y, you know, focus. I'm no music major. Let me put that out there right now. I have played one instrument in middle school, and it was the viola. I'm no music guy, but my ears like what my ears hear, you know what I'm saying? And in the case of Final Fantasy VII, never had any problem with the music. They cooked expeditiously with that music, and can't get enough of that. So, future me, how are we feeling? Does it still sound good? Are we still being blessed by, you know, the composers and things like that? Okay, I don't appreciate the hostility, don't recall that at all, especially because me, right now, is yapping a hell of a lot less than past Soul. What the hell? Anyway, the music absolutely holds up. It's still near and dear to my heart. Every theme is composed beautifully with so much love and care, it's not even funny. And it's still kind of jarring to me how diverse I completely forgot just how diverse the music in this game is. You could go from, yeah, like I said, like soft piano, like, you know, generally, you know, quieter, more gentle themes, to like actual like insane EDM type shit. It is the craziest juxtaposition I have ever witnessed in terms of a soundtrack, but it's one of the few times where it works weirdly well too, right? Especially because, like, I don't know, there's something crazy about the vibes of Final Fantasy VII that, you know, back in the day, you wouldn't really anticipate music to this degree that we have now. But at the same time, it just blends so well with everything that's going on. You don't even really, like, think of it. I've never thought of, like, the music as, like, insanely out of place or anything like that. It just blends just weirdly well. And I think I'm okay with that. Again, especially because a lot of these themes are incredibly iconic, right? Every character has their own theme. Specifically, you know, Aeris' theme is one of the most legendary by and far. It's one of the ones that's like transcended the game in of itself into just general music, right? But then you have the battle theme in of itself, or the victory theme, which is the most common, although it is very jarring how often Barrett and, you know, to a degree, Yuffie sings it every time you win a battle, or, you know, during certain moments within the story, right? So it just kind of goes to show how iconic the music within Final Fantasy VII is, and I just hope that they keep cooking. You know, it's good on the ears. Okay, that's all I have on that. I don't know why I had music last for my positives, but here we are, I guess. Let's see what Past Me has to say next. I don't know what he said, but I have a pretty good feeling that he said some good things, so I'll leave him to it. Now, something that I don't usually do is I'm gonna leave open a section here for future me to talk about anything else that I may have missed in terms of what I may like about the game. So, future me, was there anything else that current me is completely forgetting about that I did not cover within this section? Go ahead, let loose. Did I not want to bring up the gameplay? There's no way that in all of my positives here, I didn't list the gameplay to be talked about. That should have been the first thing. You could definitely tell how unorganized the general idea of this was and how late I'm coming into this. This is crazy to me. Okay, let's just go ahead and talk about the most important aspect, my most important like about this game, which is its gameplay. Now, the thing about Final Fantasy VII Remake that's more astounding than pretty much anything else that I've mentioned prior is the fact that instead of a turn-based RPG that Final Fantasy VII was originally known for, we have swapped over to a complete 100% action RPG. Meaning, instead of taking turns attacking your opponent, having them attack you, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, you are participating actively in every single battle against every single opponent. You are fighting little rando Shinra agents that are utilizing guns off rip by just swinging your blade at the press of a button. You are knocking them into the air. You're utilizing magic through materia. You are, utilizing combos and things like that using their new active battle system, which is essentially the turn-based aspect of it, but kind of evolved, right? It's a very unique battle system, a mechanic that I appreciate a lot. Essentially, you're doing the casual, regular fighting, utilizing your basic attacks and your dodges and blocks and things like that, and then you are raising up gauges constantly. And every time you use these gauges, you are able to use up 1 meter or 1 bar to utilize a move, whether it be a special move from any of, the playable characters that you have active. For example, if you're playing as Cloud, you can use a move called Braver, which is a special attack in which Cloud jumps up and pounds into the enemy with the Buster Sword as hard as humanly possible from the air. It's very hard hitting. It does a lot more damage, right? You're able to do stuff like that. You're essentially able to utilize magic through that by using, you use a bar to hit your Fyra or your Arawa or whatever. You're using a bunch of different magic. If you want to use Cure, you have to use that up as well as a little bit of your MP, which is also a very important aspect of this game. You have to keep track of your magic points, right? And then you are also utilizing it to use items such as potions or elixirs or phoenix downs and things like that, right? You're going to be abusing that active time battle system by participating in active battle. And the way they have it utilized here is just such a breath of fresh air. I adore this battle system so much, right? And they did a good job with it pretty much off rip. And, again, we'll get to it when we get to it, but I do think that they improved on it very, very heavily in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And it looks like it's going to get even better in Revelation, right? So this battle system, this gameplay system is an incredible loop. It is so well made, so incredibly crafted that I could not get enough of it. And it's definitely one of the reasons why it was so easy for me to get back into the game and go through, all the side quests again, especially the ones that deal with, combat and things like that. Any combat scenarios for special bosses or for, just hunt down this enemy or this or that, anything that involved combat, I was 100% more than down with, because that is, obviously the most important aspect of the game, and it's also very well crafted. It is a very fun system that they have set in place here, and it does something a lot more unique than a lot of other action RPGs. And this is coming from somebody, I adore Kingdom Hearts with all my heart. I love Kingdom Hearts, anything, every 1, 2, 3 and everything in between. I love their magic system. I love the systems that they have in place there, but I think there's a little bit more strategy to be utilized with this particular active time battle system that, they incorporated into real-time battles, which it elevates it to a new height, right? You are, consciously fighting all the time. You're still using your basic attacks. You're using different form stances with Cloud, or you're using, Barrett's special move that, that's an entirely different meter that you charge up. You're constantly making sure that Tifa essentially has glowing fists by utilizing her chakra and things like that. There's a lot that you need to keep track of, but that's kind of what's entertaining about that gameplay. It's what makes it so interesting and so much more fun and depthful, is that you're, constantly taking care of and paying attention to every character on the field, right? It's usually 3 to a party, and for majority of the game, it's usually Cloud and maybe 1 or 2 other party members being either Barrett and Tifa, or Tifa and Aerith, or, you know, whatever else. It's usually, you know, it's a variation of the 4. These are the only 4 playable characters primarily within, you know, Remake, right? So, you know, as you progress, you know, you're constantly getting into fights and things like that, and you're constantly, it's encouraged for you to constantly be paying attention to your teammates and swapping between them and giving them instructions so that they could use their active time meters and things like that, so that they're using special moves, and you can make sure to like time it with, you know, between 2 different people. You'll have Cloud use Braver, and then you'll have Barrett use one of his special moves, and maybe if you want to throw that in there, obviously Tifa can use her moves as well. And then it's just such a fun thing. It's just a fun mechanic to work with, right? And on top of all of that, right, you have the summoning materia, which, you know, during very specific fights, if it's going on long enough, you can build up a little like secret meter, which essentially makes it so that you will eventually be able to summon, you know, a specific, you know, monster materia to the battlefield, right? Ifrit, Shiva, stuff like that. And you can throw out commands to them too by, you know, utilizing those very same bars, those active time meters, right? So, you know, it's all this stuff that culminates together that makes it such like a strategy-filled action RPG. It's so incredible, right? You will find yourself constantly in the menus, just organizing all of your buffs on all of your equipment, like you're raising, you know, different stats for different things on different weapons. And another aspect to that is very depthful too, because not every weapon is just better than the other. You receive a lot of different weapons for each character throughout the game that you can equip to, you know, each of them individually, but they are all very special for different reasons, right? Some of them, you know, have upgrades that may benefit a more heavy emphasis on, you know, direct fights, you know, just straight hands, you know, just all power. But some of them may benefit from using a more distanced build, like magic and things like that. Something that you might want to consider putting on Barrett, right? And it's just such a good and fun, interesting blend that they have set up there. Because one of my initial negatives was the fact that you couldn't like transmog your weapons and stuff like that. I would want to be able to just use the Buster Sword throughout the entirety of my playthrough of Final Fantasy VII Remake. But going back through this most recent time, I was able to do that. As a matter of fact, I did do that. You could see it in my gameplay. I'm using the Buster Sword for a majority of my playthrough. Obviously, it's encouraged for you to try out other weapons and upgrade those to see what fits your playstyle the best. For every character, obviously, Barrett has different guns. Tifa has different gloves that she can utilize that have different specialties to them that you can upgrade. Aerith has different wands and things along those lines. But you know, obviously, Cloud and the Buster Sword to me is iconic. You can't, I can't take that off of him. It just feels wrong to use anything else. And the Buster Sword is one of my favorite weapons of all time, so I just love utilizing that weapon. And what I realized throughout this most recent playthrough is that you are able to constantly upgrade it and just add on and tack on, you know, whatever materia that you want the more you upgrade it. And on top of that, you just have to go out of your way every now and again to learn the special ability of a secret weapon, or a secret weapon of a new weapon, by utilizing that ability, and then you'll be able to equip it no matter what. You just have access to that special ability, right? And I loved that. I loved like really getting to understand this system a lot more, and you know, utilizing elemental materia to, you know, power up my attacks for specific enemies every time I would run into something. It was just such a good and fun time to just constantly organize everything and get myself ready for the next major battle ahead, right? So, you know, I could probably go on and on, but obviously I know I'm already pushing this video likely over an hour. I haven't even gotten to the negatives yet. I don't know what I said for the negatives, but the long and short of it is, this gameplay system is so incredible and so much fun, and you are guaranteed to have a good time messing around and experimenting with so much different materia that you will be in the menu for a long time, right? You just got to really play around and experiment against pretty much every enemy you might come across throughout the game, and you'll definitely find your playstyle. You can definitely modify your own unique playstyle, and that's an incredible feature to have, I think. So, okay, I think I have said my piece on this. If I'm missing anything, I'm sure I'll get back to it at the end, but for the most part, the gameplay being the most fun and unique part about it, being able to switch between party members on the fly. Every single one of them feels extremely unique and fun to play around with, not just Cloud. So it's very heavily implied that you should experiment and play with these other characters, especially during sections where they take Cloud away and you do have to use them, right? Some are more enhanced in others than, or in areas than others are, and you should definitely play around with that. So, okay, now I'm really done. I guess I am yapping a little bit more than I intended, but, you know, that's what this kind of thing is all about. I'm having fun with it. So, okay, past me. What else could we have to say? What negatives could you possibly have for us? Let's see what you got. All right, so hopefully there was plenty more for me to enjoy there. So that's great and that's awesome. Hopefully, I'm hoping that's the case. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead, flip the coin, and turn it over to my negatives. And as of right now, I don't really have many. Right, because again, it's been so long since I've played Final Fantasy VII Remake, and, you know, most of my memories in regards to it are kind of positive. So, you know, again, I'm going to leave another section open at the end here for future me to talk about what I may have missed. But as of right now, I only have two things that I remember that I wasn't too big of a fan of. For one thing, and this is like the biggest thing, was how tight everything felt. The thing about Final Fantasy VII Remake is that you kind of were getting led down something of a hallway. It just constantly felt like you were going from like one hallway to the next consistently, right? And it's just like, it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially when the world looks as good and as realistic as it does. They did such a good job designing the world that my first time through, you know, I didn't really have much of a problem with it. But the second time through, I definitely felt it a little bit, especially coming like off like Xenoblade and stuff like that at the time. And it was just so open in comparison, you know? So it really definitely, like, I paid a little bit more attention to that. But of course, again, it was like very tight-knit events and things like that that put you in very specific like hallway situations, you know, going into Shinra's HQ and things like that, going into like hotels and whatever. It's a very specific situation, especially because it all takes place within Midgar. It's all in one area. So, you know, it's not like it's the biggest problem in the world or anything like that, but I do remember, like, my second time trying to get through the game that I just was not, like, you know, feeling the fact that it was such a tight-knit hallway. But I don't know. Hey, future me, how are we feeling? Does the hallway thing get to you a little bit? Is it hurting? Does that bother you? How are we feeling? Okay, I figured something like that may happen. I didn't actually know what I was going to say here, but now that I've heard it back, I understand why, and I'm not necessarily right or wrong. Let me explain here. Now that I've played back through it again, and it's been, you know, I've played this more recently than I played Rebirth, I'm understanding what the situation was here. And it's that going from Rebirth's open, like, massive spaces, like, wide open, just having that much freedom, and then going back to Midgar, having those, like, very tight-knit, like, you know, very, you know, intentionally, like, thin hallways and stuff like that, best way to put it. It felt a little more claustrophobic. It felt a little more tight. And I think because I went from Rebirth to Remake, it felt a little bit more jarring at the time, right? But I think there's an intention there. And I completely understand it a lot more now. And in fact, I don't mind it nearly as much. I don't think it's that much of a problem at all. I like the condensed amount of, you know, situations that they have going on here, the way that they design city streets and things like that, because, you know, they really wanted to put a heavy emphasis on, like, the slums and how people were living in Midgar. And so to do that, they had to make the world feel a little bit tighter. They had to put everybody, like, right next to you. Everybody was right next to each other. You were constantly hearing the thoughts and just complaints and concerns of, like, the general citizen within Midgar. Right? And then on top of that, you know, the entire siege on the Shinra building and stuff like that was very purposeful, right? It was a good way for them to set up, like, really fun puzzles and things like that, to lead you through to, you know, get to the next arc of the story and things like that. It feels very intentional now that I've played through it and have a little bit, you know, of a distance between myself and Rebirth now. So I completely get why I felt that way initially, but now I don't think it's much of an issue at all. Like, now that I have a better understanding of what they were trying to do and how they went about it, I think it's good that they did it this way. And I think, you know, it was very fitting for the theming for Final Fantasy VII to do it this way, right? I'm sure, you know, once I go back into Rebirth, I mean, at this point in time, I tapped a little bit into Rebirth already, and I could immediately feel the difference in, you know, the freedom of being able to just hop over any ledge freely without the need of like a guide button, or being able to do really fun aerial combat and things like that. It feels so much more seamless now, right? It's a massive difference. It feels very, very different. But I can appreciate what we had in Remake a lot more now that I've, you know, really sat down with that as its own situation, right? So, yeah, I don't think that's much of an issue anymore, but I could definitely agree that to an extent it does feel a little more tight-knit, a little more suffocating than, especially going into Rebirth. You could definitely, you know, feel that, right? So, I don't know. You could feel about that one however you think, but I don't think it's much of a problem anymore, or at the very least, I don't think it's much of a problem like I used to think it was. So, that's where I'm at with that. Alright, let's get to the next one. Alright, so he definitely said something along the lines of something. So, I don't know, maybe it's been long enough to the point where I don't really feel anything towards it anymore. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, or maybe it's worse than before, because I can definitely imagine a situation where after playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it definitely feels like more of a problem. But we'll see what happens with that. Future me definitely told you already. And then the last thing here is the fact, and this one's a very specific like nitpick for me, right? The thing about Final Fantasy VII is the fact that it is an action RPG. Consistently, you are building up your, you know, arsenal and things like that when it comes to the material you have equipped, and just keeping up with the general power creep that's happening throughout the game, right? You're trying to keep your levels boosted, and you're trying to keep your equipment up with you, right? And that's totally fine. That goes for any RPG. Of course, that makes sense. The thing, though, for me personally, is that I am in love with the Buster Sword. The Buster Sword is one of my favorite weapons in history. Like, in terms of fiction. It's literally like the Keyblade, Soul Eater, like the Maka Scythe Soul, you know? Buster Sword. Top 3 weapon for me, right? So, of course, seeing it big and in HD and in its glorious, you know, high definition, you know, that's awesome. I'm in love with the weapon. The problem is, though, is that, and a lot of games have this issue, especially RPGs, where when you change your equipment, it changes to the design of the equipment that you're using, and you can't, like, aesthetically change it, right? And this is only a problem, I mean, I've recognized this problem a lot. Like, I had a very hard time switching to a new weapon my first time through, because I just love the Buster Sword that much. I wish there was an option to be able to aesthetically change it and keep it as the Buster Sword, but like still use whatever weapon I'm using, right? And I don't know, it's just such a small thing, and I know it's a stupid thing, and I'll be honest, that definitely came up because I've been recently replaying Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and it's just the fact that in that game, you can change your clothes, or you can change your, like, your armor to whatever to, you know, keep your stats right, but at the same time, you can aesthetically change it to just show whatever, to wear whatever you want. You can still wear whatever you want aesthetically, but you'll still have on, like, the actual armor underneath, right? I kind of wish we could have done something with that, especially when we got to Intergrade, right? So, I don't know, that was kind of a very, like, big, annoying issue to me, that we couldn't have an aesthetic change, you know? But, you know what? I don't know. Maybe Future Soul has something different to say about that. Maybe he was able to look past it, or maybe he was able to play through the entire game with just the Buster Sword. Future me, how we feeling? Okay, I knew this one was gonna come up, and I already addressed it. Long and short of it is, clearly I didn't understand the system as well as I thought I did initially. It wasn't until this most recent playthrough that I got a full understanding of just how important it was that you utilize all of your upgrades on each weapon to see what weapon is beneficial for what situation. Like, it depends completely on what you want each weapon for, right? And you could easily, right? I easily continuously just upgraded the Buster Sword, used a different weapon for like maybe a fight or two, got the special ability from that weapon, and was able to utilize it while having the Buster Sword on me the entire time just fine with almost no issue, right? So yeah, no, it's just a matter of just playing around with everything and getting a better understanding of the system and understanding that each weapon is unique in its own way. Some weapons are better for, you know, equipping more materia. Some weapons are, you know, more magic based or magic focused or long range focused. Some of them are good for up close and personal fights with the enemy. And the Buster Sword is one of those, which is why I like it so much. But as you upgrade it, you can make it kind of work like those other weapons as well. You can upgrade it to have more materia, have more, you know, connecting spaces for the materia, so that you can equip a materia like an elemental materia that could help out, you know, your base materia, like a fire materia, but also have it so that your blade is on fire, so that when you're fighting, you are doing elemental damage, right? Or you could add magnify to one of your materia, so that it could do damage to multiple opponents if your, you know, magic stat so happens to be higher if you're using a weapon that benefits that. So yeah, it's nothing crazy. Play around with the systems available and you'll get a better understanding of how these weapons work. This is no longer an issue to me at all. It is fully encouraged that you use every weapon in multiple scenarios. That's all there is to it. Okay, back to Past Soul. Yeah, I have a gut feeling as to what he said. I have a gut feeling of what he's gonna say. So, yeah. But other than that, though, that really is it for any dislikes that I might have. Again, I remember absolutely adoring this game. It's easily one of my favorites, and I will glaze it to hell and back. Okay, not to mention that there was a DLC that was just phenomenal, just an epic addition to the story for Yuffie and things like that. But I don't know if Future Me is going to talk about that, but I'll leave it up to him. But as of right now, I'm going to leave it open for him to talk about any other dislikes that he may have had on this most recent playthrough, because I'm sure that there's definitely going to be more, but I'll leave it to him. Future Me, was there anything else that you weren't feeling on this most recent playthrough of Final Fantasy VII Remake? The only real issue that comes to mind now that I've played through it fully for a second time is definitely, and this isn't completely the fault, you know, of the devs itself. You know, they had to find a way to make this work in a way, but there is significant padding this time around, right? Because that's the thing. Like I said, in the original game, Final Fantasy VII, you could get to where Final Fantasy VII Remake ends within the first, like, couple of hours, like first, like, single digit worth of hours, right? And that's what's so fascinating about it, is that, like, they play it up and they upscale the stakes so much within Final Fantasy VII Remake that, you know, they had to find ways to, like, you know, just essentially delve into each and every individual character, their arcs, and all of the different, like, you know, political strife that they're going through, and, you know, escalating that to a higher degree, getting to know characters deeper within Shinra to a much deeper degree, and things like that. But there are certain moments that definitely feel like, okay, like, we definitely could have walked past this a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's some good padding, right? I definitely enjoyed the tournament, right, with Aerith. That was a lot of fun, but, like, you know, just a lot of the general stuff, like, you know, going through the sewers to try and reach Don Corneo, but a rat steals the key, and you're doing that section for like almost 30 minutes or even longer, you know what I'm saying? Like, there are some things where it's like, it's okay to not have this, you know, and it didn't even lead to like a unique boss fight or anything like that. You know, it's stuff like that where it's just like, okay, this is very obviously meant to just pad out the time, right? It's just meant for us to have something to do. Sometimes it works a little bit better than others. Overall, it's not like it was the biggest deal, but there were definitely times where you could see that there was some filler and some padding to just kind of draw out the playtime a little bit before we inevitably got to the main meat of everything. So that's probably one of the more worst things that come to mind as far as like my negatives. Other than that, the only thing I could probably think of as irritating is definitely how either like loading zones or like certain other padding moments are handled, like going in between certain sections you have to like kind of shimmy through a wall, or you have to walk really slowly on a pole or something along those lines, and it's like it's so slow and dragged out, and it's like it's one of those things where it's like you see something like that and it's like, dude, we see what these characters are capable of in cutscene. They can jump, they can leap over my house if they wanted to. So it's like, why is it that they're not able to hop over like simple metal bars or something like that when they can easily scale buildings? All of them, even Barrett I've seen is capable of this. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I don't know, it just seems kind of weird at some moments during gameplay sections where they're so incredibly safe and cautious and slow when they can easily bypass a lot of the challenges that are there. Obviously, you know, Final Fantasy VII Remake isn't the only culprit of this situation. I've seen this in plenty of other games too, with superpowered people that are more than capable of getting past very simple obstacles, just not doing it for the sake of having more gameplay. But it is very weird to see it here, where we would just have to carefully maneuver across a pole just for, like, literally in the next cutscene, for them to be leaping from literally in the fight with Sephiroth, just leaping from falling buildings. Cloud was leaping at least 30 feet. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was making crazy moves. But he has to wait for Aerith to kick a ladder down so he can get through the subway. He has to, instead of just picking Aerith up and leaping up to the next platform, he has to use a mechanical robot arm to lift her extremely slowly from one area to the next. Alright, man. Sure, why not? I don't know. It's just simple moments like those that really confuse the hell out of me, especially on a second playthrough. Like, it was definitely probably a lot more bearable the first time through because I wasn't thinking too hard about it. I was really enamored with the story and I was excited to see what would happen next. But this time, knowing what would happen next, it was actually kind of dreadful remembering that I had to go through a certain, you know, section or two because it was so unnecessarily slow, because the narrative deemed it so for whatever reason. So yeah, definitely easily probably my most frustrating aspect about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Definitely doesn't knock too many points off, but definitely an unfortunate aspect of it. That being said, I think it is now down to pass me for the closing statements. I don't know what he said. Let's find out together. Don't know what he said. Hopefully there wasn't too much there. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it at that. So that just about does it from Past Soul. Right now, I currently still feel like Final Fantasy VII Remake is easily one of my favorite games. At the very least, definitely one of my top 10 RPGs of all time. It's for sure up there with Kingdom Hearts and Persona and all that, of course. Tops Persona, easily. But I just adore it so incredibly much that I can see myself coming back to it time and time and time again. And, you know, I'm sure that once we get closer to the final part of the Remake series in part 3, I'm going to be playing through it another time, because I just adore this game and this series and this franchise and these characters that much. Like, they are ingrained in my heart and I will never ever get enough of them. So that's where I stand now. So we'll go ahead and leave it to future me to sign off. But for now, this is me signing off. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed, and I will leave future me to complete the sign off with any final words he may have. So peace out from me, guys. Go ahead on. Lazy dickhead did leave it to me. Wow, impressive. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's safe to say that to this day, especially upon replay, yeah, I absolutely adore this game with all my heart. It still holds up as one of my favorite RPGs of all time. I'm very glad that they are remaking this series, and I do think fully, with all my heart, that by the time Revelation drops, I am going to confidently say that this is probably going to be one of my favorite trilogies. It's going to be up there with Kingdom Hearts. I mean, I can't even call it a trilogy because everything in between is a part of it, so it's kind of hard to call it a trilogy. But, you know, it's going to be up there with Kingdom Hearts. It's going to be up there with, you know, I mean, Infamous, you know, as a trilogy, Little Big Planet. It's going to be very important to me. It already is, and I have no doubt that Revelation, the way that they've been cooking, is going to be up there with it. But we'll have to see when we get there. We're thinking way too far ahead. For now, we look to talking more about Rebirth. I am about to work on my second playthrough of this game, so that means I will probably have a very similar video coming out much sooner. This one definitely won't take nearly as long because I'm in a Final Fantasy mood currently, so I plan to play through Rebirth, get all my footage ready to go, so that we can have another very similar discussion like this one. So make sure to stick around for that, but I've said my piece, and I'm passing the mic over to you now. How are you guys feeling in regards to Final Fantasy VII Remake? Do you love this game? Did you enjoy your playthrough of it? Did you play through it recently, or did you play through it back in 2020 when it dropped? How are you feeling about it now? Did it hold up 6 years later? Is it still one of your favorites, or maybe it's just one of those games you enjoy every now and again? Or are you on the opposing side? This game does absolutely nothing for you. It's not from one of your favorites. It doesn't really hold up in regards to the original, and or maybe even Rebirth is just so much better that Remake is just kind of not good to you anymore. Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, it does finally appear to be Skedaddle O'Clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I'd like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone. So thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time. Bye! To my